Huck's in a microwave from the approach, focusing on stalkers one by one.
Coming in from every single angle. There's a Time Warp, but look at this concave, this crescent moon.
This is what's going to happen now. The supply goes in Huck's favor.
He's just going to barrel through, take out whatever. So much pile here coming forth.
Looking like Nesty is going to take it here.
Dancing the roaches a little bit. Scarlet.
Now the Hydras are exposed. Those Mutants are going to die, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference. GG.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the World Championship Series of the American region here from the MLG studio in New York City. I'm Axel Toss, joined by Axlab, providing you with continued coverage of the WCS America qualifier for one of those 8 important spots for the Premier League of course, the WCS America region. Lots of important matches happening over this qualifier.
Exactly. Of course, the qualifier started with 512 people. Those 512 are going to be seeded down to 8.
Yes.
And of course, those 8 will join the 24 people who are already in the Premier League.
Of course, WCS America is its own entity. Of course, there's WCS America, WCS Europe, WCS Korea. WCS Korea and Europe have already begun. Europe actually started today with their Premier League play. WCS Korea has been going on for a little bit, and right now we're trying to find out, all right, who's going to be in WCS America so we can actually get started. We'll get with the Premier League, but of course, here's how it works. We get some individuals from Korea, America, and Europe, ideally the best from each region. Of course, there's going to be advancing to the season finals, 5 players from each and 1 representative from wherever the season finals is located. And that's just one season. There's actually going to be 3 different seasons. Points are going to be accumulated through all of these seasons of the World Championship Series, and of course, points from other token events here and there that aren't necessarily a part of WCS. These players are going to be accumulating, and then the top 16 points earning players of the year get to go to the global finals in BlizzCon, where a world champion will be crowned. Of course, that's still a ways away in November. It is currently April. Remind me to pay rent, because it's getting close to the end of April. But we're trying to find out who's going to be in the WCS America Premier League. And of course, we've already found out from yesterday's matches 2 of the individuals. We have an updated bracket for you guys. Of course, the winner's bracket, we're taking 4 from there. And we're taking 4 from the loser's bracket. Again, it's double elimination, top 8 go. Yesterday, we saw 2 individuals advance by the names of, well, one of them is Alicia. Today, actually, the STC is going to be advancing, and there's a bit of a story there as far as Cham unfortunately had to be disqualified because he played under a different ID. So the STC is going to get the win there, and he's going to be a qualified player. He's going to be the 3rd one. Of course, Alicia qualified, and of course, Revival qualified from the lower bracket. Later on, we're going to have Top, Crank, Oz, and Alive. We're going to find out who's going to qualify from those guys. But again, the STC going to take that qualification spot. So that means for today, we're going to be covering pretty much exclusively the loser's bracket. We have 4 players in the lower bracket. You can see them in that first column on the left-hand side of your screen. One of those 4 players is going to qualify for the Premier League of WCS America Season 1.
That's right. Of course, we're talking about Apocalypse, Cham, Bad Cop, and Hwangsin. Of course, the first match of the day is going to be Apocalypse versus Cham, followed by Bad Cop versus Hwangsin. Then the winners of each of those matches will play to see who really gets that qualified spot and joins the SDC, Revival, Alicia, and of course the 24 already invited players into that Premier League.
Of course, there you see the schedule about what's going to be happening this week. Again, by Thursday, we're going to know which 8 players get spots in WCS America Premier League. And again, yesterday we saw Revival and Alicia qualify. Congrats to them. Today, you see those 4 players. And then, of course, continuing on in the week, some awesome StarCraft to be had. And don't be fooled, guys. I know you saw that bracket, and it's like, oh, there's only 8 people there. Okay, that's pretty simple. There's only 16. No, we start with 512 players. Some of these players have had grueling runs. They've had to go through so many different players, and the purpose of this is to kind of dive into those storylines and truly see how these players got to that point. So I'm super excited. There's a lot of storylines behind all of these players involved in this tournament, and You know, speaking of which, today, the 4 players we're worried about, the 4 players we're talking about are going to be Cham, Apocalypse, Bad Cop, and Huang Sin. The first match is going to be between Cham and, of course, Apocalypse. And I want to talk about these 2 guys. Of course, we'll start off with Apocalypse. He's going to be a little bit more well-known. I think he is on Team Quantic Gaming. He was one of the first Korean players that kind of came from Korea to join a foreigner team. This was about a year ago. He's been on Quantic for a very, very long time. And I was actually on Quantic when this was all happening. So I personally know the guy. He's fantastic. He's really funny. He's really cute. I'm allowed to say that word. I can. And of course, qualifier performance. This is basically what happened, how we got here. Defeated Sorgo?
Sour Gecko.
Oh. Nick, I'm so glad you're here. Sour Gecko, Denisto, Axiom Heart. Not a bad one there. Hui and Pig. Of course, Pig being an Australian player. Hui, Chinese player. Lost to Crank to get to this point. So, Apocalypse, he was in the winner's bracket until losing to Crank, and now here he is in the lower bracket. Of course, former member of Team IM.
Of course, he's going to be going up against Cham. And Cham's, you know, people don't really know too much about this guy, but he's actually, he actually competed in the WCS North America tournament last year. He was one of the better players in Mexico. He's a Grandmaster on the North American ladder. He's also a very young kid, only 16 years old.
Yeah.
And he had a crazy run in this qualifier, losing in the very first round.
Lost in the first round.
Over there to Shu, and then of course he went on a streak through the loser bracket, including wins against Siphon, who's one of the better players in North America.
Hodor,
Calibor.
the big guy in Game of Thrones.
Yes, him too.
Beat him.
And of course Noni, Liquid
Yes.
Tyler, a very well-known player. So he's had quite a run so far. Will it continue against Apocalypse? It's going to be tough. Apocalypse, of course, is a great player from Korea.
You know, Cham, again, only 16 years old. One of those up-and-comers. One of those players who, you know, we haven't necessarily heard of, which I think it's awesome we get to cast one of his matches. Apocalypse, a little bit better known. But, again, it's one of those stories of Korea versus North America. In this case, Mexico. A 16-year-old kid from Mexico. And I'm super excited to see how this best-of-3 turns out. That being said, should we delay any longer?
No. Let's go straight into the first game over here. The map is going to be Daybreak. And, of course, this is a longer map. It's often nice for Zerg players as far as having to worry about that early pressure from the Terran opponent. But then the later the game goes on, the power of the speed link counterattack isn't quite as strong on this map as in others because of the linear fashion of the map.
The matchup is going to be Terran versus Zerg. This is a best-of-3. The winner of this best-of-3 will advance on to play the winner of Huang Sin and Bad Cop. And if they win there, they will qualify for the Premier League of WCS America. In the top right-hand location, we have the blue Terran player from Team Quantic Gaming. Joined the team after being a part of IM. He is Apocalypse. One of those Terran players that kind of bursted out onto the scene, but has had a little bit of trouble getting a ridiculous amount of momentum. So a great opportunity for him here to really get some notoriety and, of course, a spot in that very important Premier League for Season 1 of WCS America. And here we are in the bottom left, where we have the Red Zerg player, 16-year-old Zerg from Mexico. He is on Team LAG. He is Cham. Considered the underdog, I would say. And remember, to get to this point, he had to defeat so many different players. Again, he lost in round 1 to Shu from Clarity Gaming.
He did. And you know, he's definitely the underdog, but I think a lot of people would have said he would have been the underdog against Calibur.
Yeah.
He would have been the underdog against Noni.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, he's beaten all these great players already. So Apocalypse, of course, is a very good player, but he's definitely beatable. If you can beat players like Calibur and Noni, you can beat a player like Apocalypse. Now, is he? I'm not saying he's for sure going to win. No, of course not. I mean, Apocalypse did beat Axiom Heart, who's one of the favorites for this tournament, knocked down to the loser bracket by Apocalypse. So obviously, Apocalypse is extremely good as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the Zerg matchups he's had. No, but definitely no stranger to important matches as well. Apocalypse has a lot of experience in team leagues. Considered one of the aces, honestly, for Quantic for a very, very, very long time. Of course, this was the era of, you know, when Naniwa was on Quantic, when Sase was on Quantic. Quantic had a really good team league team, and Apocalypse was always very eager to play in those team league matches. So, you know, very good player, lots of experience. We'll have to see what he does here. Opening up with the Reaper on one base. You know, fairly standard, of course, Terran players, the the differences are, or the decisions they have to make early on is like, all right, how fast do I want to get my command center? But a lot of Terran players, instead of going for the very fast command center, getting a barracks first and getting a Reaper out just to get some map control. And before speedlings are out, you can actually do a decent amount of damage with the Reapers, provided you have good micro. And we're seeing some drones being sent to the national expansion here by Cham. One drone going to be saved, be made into an extractor, but Apocalypse trying to tag down another one. Is he going to be made into something? Yep, there's a Spore Crawler. So Apocalypse just being annoying for now.
Oh, wow, a third drone saved by turning it into a building. Fourth drone is under fire. It's going to try to make it to the extractor. Another drone saved by making it into a building. Of course, this is
Oh my
great.
god.
He hasn't lost a single drone yet.
You just have to cancel this Spore eventually.
Yes, yes. I mean, of course, he is losing resources by canceled buildings, but as far as... Look at that again!
Oh, a Spore finished in the main.
Oh,
You don't want them
no,
to
that's a
finish.
pretty big mistake, actually.
Yeah.
That is significantly worse than actually losing the drone. One drone being very bold, saying, come back here, Reapers. Pays for his life, so...
The drone was like, come on, guys. He doesn't have that much health. Let's go get him. Fortunately, no one was following the drone.
Yeah, that was a little unfortunate. So what started out as a really great defense of the Reaper Harass really actually kind of last moments backfired. A Spore completed. That cost him not only a drone, but the minerals who had gone from canceling the Spore, which is, you know, I think 57 or thereabout minerals. So it's almost 2 drones lost, and that he lost another drone chasing. Another drone goes down. And all of a sudden, everything's really not going well for Cham here. In
So
fact,
is speed something that should have been sought after very early on here by Cham? What do you think?
that's, you know, probably the most common response
Right.
is to get that fast speed. But I actually am really intrigued by his manner of defending it. He didn't build a single Zergling, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you are 100% correct.
Yeah, so what he's doing is he's saying, you know what, the Zerglings aren't that great defending. I'm going to get extra queens. We can see he's already at 3 queens.
Yep.
So 1 extra queen very fast. Actually, 4 queens, excuse me. Double queens. Just go gasless. And yes, the Reapers will be hard to deal with, but because I'm not getting any Zerglings, because I'm delaying that gas, I have a lot more minerals to play with.
We have some Hellions coming forward here from Apocalypse. You know, Apocalypse able to keep an eye on exactly what his opponent is doing. Realizes his opponent not going for speed, so he can keep these Reapers out on the field. Of course, at this point in time, Apocalypse would have identified the gases at the natural expansion, so he can now kind of start being wary of how fast speed is going to be coming. And we see 16 lings on the way. A Baneling Nest in production by Cham. It looks like he's going to try to catch Apocalypse off guard with a bunch of speedlings and potentially surround all these Hellions and Reapers.
He definitely is. Oh, getting into the mineral line. Drones are in danger.
Speed isn't done yet. Speed isn't done yet. The Slowling's thinking about engaging, but letting the Queens come forward. The Hellions going straight after that drone line, but it looks like that surround is going to happen, and Speed is about to kick in. Cham is going to sprint across the map, make a billion Banelings, and try to bust his opponent. The question is, will Apocalypse be prepared?
Oh, I think he will. He saw way more speedings than were needed to defend his aggression. He also saw the Baneling Nest, and that Baneling Nest was timed at a point where it didn't make sense for anything but aggressive Banelings. Of course, there's no need to get them for defensive purposes quite that early, so we can see Apocalypse already reacting, has bunkers going up in his main, his natural has a wall there. This is going to be a very tough defense for Cham to break.
Taking a couple pokes at that bunker. It's going to stay alive for now. Apocalypse trying to repair that. A bunch of Banelings are in production. 11 in total. Apocalypse trying to close up this wall at his natural expansion. Has 2 Widowmines here, trying to add on, actually adding on a couple Hellions here instead of more Banelings. Or instead of more Widowmines, I should say. The Banelings heading right for that bunker. Apocalypse pulling those SCVs a little bit too late, but Apocalypse looks like he's in a very solid position and still has plenty of bunkers here on his side of the map.
Plenty of bunkers. This one bunker looks like it may go down, but again, the main has an additional wall. There's a bunker behind a wall in the main. So while he has to temporarily abandon this lower ground expansion, he really has suffered very little economic damage. His production is going great. I think Apocalypse is in a great position to go forward. He even has Stim already finished.
So many Lings dying essentially for free there. Hellions getting some great shots from the high ground. A Widowmine getting a great shot on the Baneling. 16 kills on that Widowmine. And that's going to pretty much shut down this aggression, I feel. But Cham sending some more Lings across the field, working on Burrow, and has a Roach Warren on the way. This guy is staying very low econ.
He's not giving up at all, of course, knowing his opponent probably has those 3 orbitals, knowing that his opponent probably has a lot of SCVs. He feels he's compelled to do more damage.
Tracking this
Hellions.
around, not bad at all. Taking down all but one of these Hellions.
Yeah, a nice little win for Cham there, and I feel like Cham overestimates his opponent's economy. Of course, Apocalypse actually really stopped producing SCVs for several minutes there. So while in a standard game, Materin might have close to 50 SCVs by this point, Apocalypse is still only at 30. So I don't think Cham's quite as committed as he felt he was. He felt he had to do a lot more damage there. But going forward, he's still in okay position. He's going to take a third base, proceed to lair. The tricky part is going to be surviving versus the counter pressure that Apocalypse puts on.
Now, he has a lot of roaches in production here. I feel like he has the intentions of pushing across the map. Units tab is 9 roaches, 10 roaches on the field, 5 more in production. So he's going to have 15 roaches that have burrow. Do you think that's this incoming push? Well, I would imagine. Are these just defensive? I feel like if you make this many and you get burrow, it's like...
Yeah, I think he overmade roaches because the thing is he can't be aggressive with roaches against stim bio until he get roach speed. He can't move off creep until he gets speed, or he'll just get kited forever. He'll just get slaughtered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe he wants to do a big roach push, but I felt maybe he should have droned up a little more before he starts building roaches, as he can't quite attack until roach speed is done, and he doesn't really quite need as many roaches as he has currently if he just wants to defend.
Yeah, I mean, 19 roaches, usually you want to stick around 4 or 5 if you're trying to defend against little skirmishes. If you think a push is coming, that's when you want to add on a little bit more. Now, there was a medevac that was lifted up into, but I don't know where it went. Do you remember that, Nick? Or was I blind?
I think it just actually rejoined the rest of the attack squad there at the front.
Because there's only 2 medevacs in the units tab, and they're both right here. So it looks like Apocalypse thought about going for a drop, but decided, all right, I'm just going to keep these guys in my army. He's going to target down this hatchery at the third base. Cham sending forward those roaches, just moving them directly, not even attack, moving to try to get as close as possible before beginning to attack. But Apocalypse just going to lift up and jet out of there with those afterburners.
Oh, but he's coming back, and Cham has got to be ready to defend this attack with more rallied forces. Of course, he does have enough units back there at the natural. I think he should be okay. He's trying to put on the counter pressure now as roach speed nears completion.
Overseer is here, going to spot that with him.
Overseer going down.
Taken down, so he's going to have to remake one of those. He wants to be safe against the inevitable Widow Mine harassment. Of course, there's the roaches and lings shoving these Marines and Marauders away. Apocalypse going to pick up and back away. However, Cham has a lot of units streaming across the map. Again, roach speed is about to finish, and this is exactly what you talked about. A lot of Banelings being made at the front door of Apocalypse's natural expansion. He has 2 Widow Mines here. It looks like a decent amount of bio. Can Cham bust this open, sending in the Banelings one at a time, exploding into 4 depots and taking them all out? But does he have enough to do enough damage to the economy of Apocalypse to make this worth it?
I don't think so. The choke point's too good. Wait, Apocalypse with the miscontrol moves into the roaches, but he just has too much. 4 medevacs tank on the high ground was instrumental there. And really putting...
And the Widow Mines too. I don't think there was an Overseer.
Oh yeah, that one Widow Mine actually killed something like another 12 Zerglings and got splashed on every single roach there.
18 Widow Mine kills there.
Very, very effective Widow Mine.
Unit loss should be fairly interesting. 7702. That's a fancy way of saying 7,702 to 4,370. Oh, and Cham sees everything get picked up and goes straight into his main base. This Spore Crawler might be useful. Remember, he made that at minute 1.
It finally gets its first... No, it doesn't actually get a single attack off quite yet. Poor Spore is still out of the picture.
Aww.
Too much is being dropped here. Cham's struggling to defend. He has a portion of his forces denied to third base from Apocalypse, but Apocalypse doesn't really care as long as he's killing his opponent's
There's
men.
the GG from Cham, and Apocalypse takes game number 1. Very solid play. Of course, it started out with the Reaper stuff in the beginning that Cham, you know, it feels like he's seen that before, and he usually... I feel like you wouldn't do that strategy unless you've done it before, as far as getting the 4 queens out, don't make as many lings, and try to defend it that way by making extra buildings here and there. But I think Apocalypse definitely able to get the better end of the deal there with that Reaper.
He did. I mean, I think Cham's defense was great up until he forgot to cancel that Spore, and he sent 1 drone too far out. And even with those things, it wasn't actually that bad. Like, he wasn't significantly behind by any means, but what really put the nail in his coffin is when Apocalypse scouted that all-in.
Yeah.
And those type of really early Baneling speeding all-ins, they have to catch your opponent off guard. If they don't, they're not going to work. That's exactly what we saw happen here in this game.
It's a little bit interesting. The placement of that Baneling nest actually ended up being at the natural expansion of his own natural expansion. So I feel like if you're intending to do a Baneling all-in like that, it would make more sense to put the Baneling nest in your main to really just hide it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that game went.
Yeah.
Take a short break and be right on to game number 2.